Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Technically Something, the show where we talk about technology, creativity, tutorials, and gaming. I'm your host, Kevin Allen, and I have a quick question. Do you like animals? I know I do. Alright. This is Goose, or Gus Gus. As you can tell, he's very special. And I love him. Oh. And here's my other boy. He's a little grouch, but I still love him so much. Titi. Well, okay. His name is Theo, but we call him Titi. And he's shy. Look, he's not gonna steal your soul. Anyway, there he is. Cute boy. Those are my two animals, and they're both cats. So if I were to put these two together, we would get sort of like a grayish, blackish, and white cat. Not too exciting, but what would happen if we were to combine, say, a parrot and a squirrel, or an octopus and a dog? There's really crazy things that would happen, right? But we have no clue what that would look like. Well, you're in for a treat because today we're going to create our very own species using Photoshop and two images of two animals. Let's get right into it. Here we are. First thing that we need to do is get the content that we're going to be creating. In my case, as usual, I went to unsplash.com and I found three pictures that I think I want to use for this. The first one is going to be our main backdrop, or the background, and that's going to be this fox. Second one is this squirrel, and third is this hawk. And I'm going to be mainly using pieces of each animal to create a new one. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click, copy image, Alt tab back to Photoshop, and when I hit Control N or Command N, it's going to say clipboard because we had copied the image and it actually has the clipboard dimensions. So we have the picture exactly where we want it. I'm just going to make the resolution a little higher at 300. Everything else is fine. So we'll click OK. And from here, we can hit Control or Command V. There we go, we have our fox. So I'm going to Alt Tab back to Unsplash, get the next picture and copy it. Alt Tab back to Photoshop and Control V. I have my squirrel. Last but not least, copy image and paste in Photoshop. So we have all three, and I'm going to name the layers right now. So double click on the layer, call this fox, squirrel, and hawk. I think that's a hawk. Looks hawky. I want to use the squirrel's head to put on the body of the fox. One problem is that the ears might go larger on the fox, so we'll have to cover those up. And also, the squirrel's head is facing a different direction. But there's a trick that I can show you that's really easy to fix that. What I'm going to do first is mask out what I don't need from the squirrel picture. And what's easy with that is zooming in, and then we can grab our lasso tool, L, to access that. And I'm just going to very carefully go around the squirrel's head. And it's okay if we get some of the body too, like around the neck and ear and all that. And remember, this doesn't have to be perfect right off the get-go. Take time to make a good selection, that's great, but we'll always be able to go back and touch it up later with how we do things. Okay, so we have our lasso, and I'm going to click on this icon down here, which is Add Layer Mask. And what that does is that masks out everything from the picture that we didn't have selected. And this little black and white box next to our squirrel, that's the mask. And everything that's black is hidden, and everything that's white is showing. So if I grab a brush and I were to paint black, a little bit bigger, if I were to paint black, it goes away. But if I get this to be white, so if I hit X, and now my fill color is white, I can go back, fill that in. because it's not erasing anything, it's just masking it, it's just hiding it. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is go to our move tool, or you could click V. I'm gonna drag this up, and right now this is too small, so I'm going to transform it. We'll hit Control T, get on the outer edges here, get a little bigger. Say that's about right. Biggest squirrel head I've ever seen, but that'll work. Then we hit Enter. There. So another thing is, if you want to rotate, you can also do this by transforming. And now the box is too big, so let me show you what I mean. If I zoom out, so Z, and then I'm going to hold Alt and click and zoom out. Now if I transform, Control T, we get this big box around our squirrel, and that's because if I disable this mask, the whole picture is there. We have a big picture. So that's why the transform shows up that way. But if you go on the outside anywhere and you see that the mouse turns into this icon, this means that you can click and drag to rotate. I'm just going to rotate this a little bit, not much. Well, I guess that's a lot more than it looks like. Hit Enter. And now I can hit Control or Command 0 to zoom all the way back in, full picture. Okay, so at this point, it's your choice. You could leave this facing forward, and in fact, I might, but if you wanted it to be facing the same way as the fox, you would Control T to transform, right click, and then you have a bunch of transforming options, and you can click Flip Horizontal. Now, it'll face this way. However, I just don't think it looks very good in this particular case, so I'm going to stick to the other direction. And now, this looks like it was just sort of copied and pasted on there, right? It doesn't look too good. So the first thing I want to take care of are these ears that are hanging out over the top. So I'm going to hide my squirrel, go on the fox layer, and down here, if you watch the Disappearing Act video, this is a little bit simpler than it may seem, especially in this case, because the background is mostly the same color. So if I select around these ears and the area surrounding them, we'll see what we get. Remember, content aware fill doesn't always work, but let's try. It's a very good look. Well, we got rid of some of it. Now, in this specific case, I could create a new layer above the fox, and I will call this cover, or cover up. I'm going to use the eyedropper, click on the color right next to the fox. Now I'll get my brush, make sure it's a soft round brush and that it's larger. Now when I go over it, pretty quick and easy touch up, and got away with it this time because the background is so out of focus that I don't really notice too much. Okay, let's turn the squirrel back on. Good, we have those ears covered, but still, the squirrel just looks like it was just pasted on there, just so. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna position it exactly where I think I need it. A little bit right there, kind of centered. And now, remember our mask. Earlier, I painted black and white to show you that you can either hide or show certain parts of the mask. What's cool about this is you can get your brush, right click, and just like that soft round brush I used up here, you can use the same thing. And if I make sure that my fill color is black, I can hide edges of it. And since it's a soft round brush, it's only gradually taking a little bit off at a time. It's not like a hard line. It blends it a lot better. See, already, night and day, that is looking so much better. Now, if you want some of the other pictures, some of the fur from your squirrel to go onto the fox's body, then you will just hit X, switch over to a white color fill, and now you could paint some of that fur onto the fox, exposing more of what you have masked. and make it look like it's kind of part of the coat. But I went too high, so I'm going to swap back to black. And don't worry too much about the color difference. We're going to get to that. I'm going to show you how to color correct here in just a minute. All right, so right now we have a squirrely looking fox. Now let's go to our last piece, and instead of taking the head or the body or any of that stuff, I'm gonna give you one guess as to what I want from the bird. It's the wing. I want the wings. I'm just gonna lasso a general selection down here. And the nice thing about this picture, just like the fox, oops, make sure we have our layer selected and then mask it. We have similar colors going on all the way around the outside. So even if I get my magic wand, if you haven't used the magic wand, the way that it works is you'll click on a picture. So make sure your layer is selected, the picture on your layer, not your mask. And when you have this selected, you can go to that color and click it. See what happens there? It selects all of that color. It went in on the wing just a little bit, but that's because our tolerance is at 50% out of 100. So what I can do is reduce the tolerance. That means that it's going to tolerate less color changes. So let's go down to 25. Let's cut this in half. Deselect, Control D to deselect. I'm going to try clicking it again. Much better this time. Look at that. Right around the edges, exactly where we need. So now I go to my mask. It's already black, and I can just fill this in where I had it selected. Right. Control D to deselect. And this may happen. You'll get a little pixel line around the selection that we had. That's easy to take care of. Just go back to your brush. Make sure you're not going over what you already took care of. And then drag your black brush on the mask around that pixel line to hide it. Okay. So, just like before, I'm going to transform and rotate. Make this vertical. Now, if you're observant, you will notice this wing is backwards, but you probably already know what to do because we did it with the squirrel's head. We're in transform mode now, so I'm just going to right click, flip horizontal. There we go. Now we can put the wing right there. Here we go. Kind of keep it in frame a little bit. Enter once we're done. So just like before, this hard edge doesn't look too good. So I'm going to go to the mask, get my brush, make sure it's selected. Also, remember that you want to have a soft round brush. If you can't find this brush, you could even take a hard round brush. You could just reduce this hardness level to 0, and then it will be a soft brush. So I can go along the edge there. Blend those two a little bit better. All right. One last little touch up that we could do if you are just really into the details, which I know some of you are. I'm going to right click and I can go to the top and select duplicate layer. You could call it whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it as hot copy. And see, we have a duplicate of the wing. I'm going to transform and rotate this just to be a little bit up. Other one. Enter. And now I'm going to reorganize. I'm going to drag this layer down so that it's actually right about there. And it works in this case because we already covered up the fox with some of the squirrel's back. So now the wing is showing up behind the squirrel, and it appears like it's actually in the background. And one last thing we can do is add an adjustment layer. Now this, we're going to be using a few of these, but this adjustment layer, which you can find right down here, this is where all of your adjustment layers will be. I'm just going to make this one a little darker. Watch what happens when I decrease the brightness. See how it decreases and increases the whole picture, or rather all of the layers that are underneath it. So right here we have the adjustment layer, and every layer underneath it is being affected. The hawk copy and the fox. Okay, so I'm going to darken that wing, but if I only want it to be on the wing, I hold Alt, hover in between the layer and the adjustment layer, and see how this icon changes? That's what we want. That's when we click, and now that adjustment layer will only affect the layer underneath it and no other ones. So there, I made that wing a little bit darker so that it looks like it's in the background. All right, now earlier I said that we were going to color correct the squirrel to make it look a little bit more like the fox's fur. And we actually do that with an adjustment layer, just like we did with the wing, only now we're gonna click on the squirrel, go to our adjustment layers, and then we're going to select color balance. And this pops up. Now before we go too far, I want to already anchor this color balance layer to the squirrel. So I hold Alt, hover in between the layers until this icon changes, and click. You'll always know that it's anchored because you see this arrow here. Okay, so let's add a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow. We're getting closer, maybe just going to the magenta, just a little bit. Hello. You have to kind of just move it based on how it looks. You have to get it just right. I think that's fairly close. And you can always see what it looked like before and after by turning it on and off with this eyeball symbol. So let's click it. So again, a subtle change, but it makes a big difference. You could even go further and try and do this with the hawk wing. But instead of me going into the adjustment layers menu and clicking and all that, I could actually just hold Alt, click and drag the color balance up, and then drop it on top of the hawk. That actually duplicates the exact same color balance that I just did, but puts it on the wing. Then I just have to anchor it. Hold Alt and click. All right, I'm gonna do that one last time with, so I'm gonna drag this down, hold Alt, click and drag, go down. It's always such a pain when this happens. Here we go, hot copy. And I'm going to drop this on the hot copy. And you can see it's a very subtle, very small change, but if you wanted to ever go back in, what's so nice about this is that all you have to do is double click on the icon and it'll bring up all of the options, so we can go back and try and change this some more. Then let's go up here, double click, and change the properties. I think this thing needs horns. So I'm gonna go back to Unsplash and I'm gonna search for a rhino. There we go, that's it. I'm gonna right click, copy this image, paste. Now all I'm gonna do is select this horn. Go, mask it, transform to shrink it down a little bit, and then rotate by clicking outside of it and dragging. You could just leave it that way if you want, where it shows this hard edge, but what I'm gonna do is mess with the mask, do a soft round brush just around the edges here to make it look like it's kind of coming out of the fur. Now if I hit Control 0 and go back, we have ourselves a little hybrid animal, a brand new species. I'm not sure what I would call it. A squinox. That's what I would call it, a squinox. Because we got a squirrel, rhino, fox, and hawk. I'm just kind of combining those two together. It's sort of lazy, but hey, it's my creature. I made it. I can call it what I want. So it is a squinox. Is that what I said before? I hope that's what I said before, because I made a really, anyway. Well guys, I hope that this was helpful. This is one of those projects that's really fun, and this is when you're starting to get the swing of Photoshop and you're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with it. And by now, if you've been watching all the videos, you've been noticing patterns. I use a lot of the same things and edit non-destructively because it's faster in the long run. On another note, if you are subscribed, please make sure to share, comment, like, and also if you follow me on Facebook but you're not subscribed here, now's a great time to subscribe because I'm starting to get to the point where I want you guys to let me know what you'd like to see next. And the more subscribers I have, the more you can inform me and the more content I can give you based on what you're wanting. Stay tuned for everything technology, creativity, tutorials, gaming, and more on Technically Something. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.